Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the American Corner, Cape Town. We are celebrating Global Entrepreneurship Month, and these are a few interviews and conversations that we're going to be having over the next couple of weeks with people who are of great value in our ecosystem and who are very inspirational, in my opinion. So we have Tamburai Chirume, who's here with us today. She's one of the top AGOA global businesswoman or business persons in Africa. And so we really value her time because we know that businesswomen and entrepreneurs have very hectic schedules. So we have a few questions and we'll have a conversation around some of these questions as we celebrate Entrepreneurship Month, seeding ideas of inspiration, looking at how we address challenges, and also just looking at how we as citizens engage in our ecosystems to be more successful in achieving our goals. So Tamburai, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being with us today at the American Corner, Cape Town, or in our ecosystem virtually. So I'd like to kickstart off with the first question is, what do you think entrepreneurship is? How do you perceive it to be?
Okay, thank you so much, firstly, for having me. And yeah, it's exciting that entrepreneurs get to be celebrated this month because what entrepreneurship is, I think it's passion. It's a lot of sacrifice and hard work. Entrepreneurship is not about you as an individual. It's actually about serving. So I think that's what I believe entrepreneurship is, and that's what true entrepreneurship is. It's yes, of course, it's driving a business, running a business, making a profit, but it really is giving a lot of yourself to others.
And how do you link the two words, opportunity and innovation, into this tapestry?
I think it's important to do everything with intention, first of all. And through that, that's where the opportunities come about. And then you need to find innovative ways to solve problems and bring solutions to your clientele, or solve a lot of the problems that are in the world at the moment, because I think we're facing a lot of different crises. And if you just have a business that is not contributing to some sort of change, it's going to be very difficult to survive in a very fast-moving ecosystem, as you've said, of entrepreneurship, because it's really not easy. But if you're able to find that ecosystem and be part of driving some sort of change, I think you'll find the support that you need to keep moving.
So I'll definitely think, I know I'd sent you an email with a few questions, but that's my template, my guideline that we're working with. And so I may not hit those questions in context of the numerical sequencing. But very much part of the vocabulary of intention is I would think that knowing you for like 4 years, I think 4 years, 5 years now, is that there's definitely faith and family are pillars of your particular culture. Talk about the importance of that particular choice of priorities.
Okay, I think that's probably one of the best questions someone has asked me in many interviews I've done. I think as entrepreneurs, grounding is very important because you can lose yourself within the challenges. You can also lose yourself within the success. So your family foundation is very important, as well as your spiritual foundation. You know, those are the places that carry you through. Those are the places that you lean to when things are difficult and challenging, which is about 60 or 70% of the time. So those two things are very important for entrepreneurs, to have a strong support system, which I think you need to create yourself. Community doesn't always have to be family. It can be family that you've created yourself, and also your direct family as well. But faith is very, very important, regardless of what you believe. You need to have something that you hold on to take some ease off those challenging moments.
So there's a spiritual faith and faith in yourself, faith in your business, yeah?
Yes, and faith in the people that you're working with as well. I think that's really important because most of the time you find yourself you cannot do it alone. I think that's really important to know. You cannot run any enterprise as, I guess, as a solo entrepreneur, yes, but then you have service providers, you have people that you rely on. So it's important to have that mindset to understand that you need to work with other people for the greater good of what you're trying to do.
So it's soft skills versus, let's say, practical skills of running a business, plus, let's say, managing the I was going to say, soft skills would be the relationships that you're choosing to nurture. An important part, which I think entrepreneurs don't always talk a lot about, is either the letting go of relationships and choices that you've made previously, or unlearning. Do you want to talk a little bit about that particular choices, or let's say embracing, saying I had to unlearn that particular culture because it's not practical to be applied in this space, or I have to say let go of that relationship because it's not conducive to the growth of the business? Because I know sometimes it's tough decisions where you are in business with people and you are nurturing economic relationships, but the relationship in a certain sense has served its purpose. And so it's letting go of maybe the professional relationship and saying it's still a friendship relationship. All of those sort of a mixed bag of experiences. So let's go unlearning, and then let's talk letting go.
Okay, so I think the most important thing as well here, and what I'm hearing you say, is values. So, you need to know what your values are, and, do the parties that you're engaged with, whether it is suppliers, whether it's employees, whether it's colleagues, do they align with your values and your value system and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve? So with regards to unlearning, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned within my entrepreneurship journey is growth. We're growing. Ultimately, you're human, right? So that ability to grow and say that, this isn't good for me, or, here I'm learning this. We can learn from all the people that are around us. I think that hierarchy system as well can deter us from learning, because you can learn from your employees, you can learn from your stakeholders, your suppliers, your customers. Your customers are your teachers on a daily basis, because you get to know what they want. You have to be quite patient and really understand people. So I think there are unlearnings all the time as you grow, and letting go. I think letting go, what I've learned is to not sweat the small stuff, because you're daily dealing with things to grow your business, but the challenges always come. So you need to determine what is worth stressing about and what is not worth stressing about. And that's where the letting go comes in, because there's some things that will come and they will try to break you down, and you have to just be like, on a level of 1 to 5, where does that sit? Am I going to let it go, or am I going to take it on? But it's up to you as an individual to make that decision. And
in context of business, there's always the hit and miss, and I'm putting this lightly, of the business plan. There are 1 or 2 entrepreneurs who I've encountered who says they've got a big vision and a big purpose, and the target and the goal is there continuously in context of their gravitational pull, and they think 5-year plan, that doesn't really work for me. I know 5-year plan or business, in context of business plan, especially when you have to kind of go into like a financing conversation, that certain stakeholders of funding institutions want that type of vocabulary. But I'm going to take a step back in context of the narrative and say your program, which you partnered with the US Consulate Cape Town Public Affairs division, which you first started out in Cape Town and then expanded around the country, the business of creative entrepreneurship. Was the idea of that type of program ever in your vocabulary, or was it through collaboration and conversations had that idea evolved with public affairs?
I think I read this book recently, virtually. I think it's called Do the Work. And it talks about starting with the end in mind. So you need to always think, okay, what would the end look like, right? So if I go back and think of my journey with, the US consulate and the American corner, it all started with the IVLP experience. And while I was there, I think I was just through engaging with people and really understanding the challenges that creative business women in particular face within the African continent. When I came back from that experience, it was all on my shoulders, asking myself, what solutions are there? And I think intention once again comes in here, because through having authentic conversations with people and telling them how you would genuinely like to be part of some sort of change, I think that's how ideas evolve. And I remember some time ago, I think probably in 2014 or 2015, I actually wrote a Facebook post about that desire of actually wanting to work with creative women to become profitable businesses. And if you look at the One of Each journey and how we started it, it's a similar concept of how my mom is the creative and I'm sort of the marketing business person. So I think it's probably within my DNA, that idea of wanting to see something creative turn into an asset of value, and I look at that Facebook post, which I actually saw the other day. It's a reminder, and I had written that I want to do something of that nature. I just didn't know how. So I think it's very interesting to be able to have the end goal in mind, have really good intentions, and be passionate about it. We truly want to do it. I think that's through conversations, people will actually hear you and want to support you on that journey.
I think one of the interesting conversations I know that you and I have had offline is, and this is something which we still again have to kind of realize, is to have the sort of BCE alum sort of program, so people can reconnect just in context of where they are with their journey, and how they're progressing. And the cliche of entrepreneurs have a tendency to become very silo orientated, because you're so caught up in the shoulder to the wheel, grinding away at the work, that sometimes you disconnect from your relationships. And I know if I look at BCE, the Business of Creative Entrepreneurship, I'm using that as a sort of a compass point in the conversation. It's that you've touched so many lives. So besides us having the conversation of saying, yeah, we must have this kind of get together here at the American Corner, how often are you touching base with those who have kind of come through the program? Or do you have to remind people, hey, let's not lose touch? Or are you saying to them, you're still in my heart space and head space, but we just so busy. How do you balance and manage that particular types of conversation?
Wow. So I think, with the BCE community, it's really special, because I think I don't spend like a whole week without actually hearing from 2 or 3 or 4 of the alumni actually in my WhatsApp inbox, asking me about certain things, telling me about, where they are and what they're doing, or actually just being human and saying, hi, how are you doing? How are things? And not having it being business related, because I think we formed quite a strong sisterhood with some of the BCE alum. And actually one of the participants from this year is opening a store on the 13th of November. She's opening a beauty spa. So I think when I saw that notice on our BCE alumni group, I was like, this is what we want to do. This is the impact that we're wanting to create. And I think that's probably one of the biggest successes of the BCE alum who've come out of the program. And I actually went to a conference recently called SOCAP, where they were talking about, how do we actually measure impact? Because impact is happening right now as you and I have this conversation. But because you and I are not in that conversation, sometimes we actually miss some of those things. So it's so important to find, I think, more intricate ways of actually getting to know and understand what's happening within the journeys of these entrepreneurs that we're working with, and also understanding more of their challenges. And we're trying as best as we can to say, how do we do casual meetups? We did one sometime this year where we just met for a lunch, and everyone who was interested actually just came over to the waterfront. And it was just an opportunity for previous cohorts to also get to know and meet each other, and discuss challenges and how they have evolved over time. And also not to just forget to talk about the the alumni only. I think the facilitators have played a very special part in the lives of the participants, because the alumni have built relationships with the facilitators as well, which I think is also very special.
And I think the important part of the sisterhood, and again, we go into this whole conversation of that entrepreneurs or business people, you get so caught up in the drive of the business that you forget to decompress, or you forget to spoil yourself and give yourself some downtime. So I think the idea behind the member of BC opening up a sort of a beauty spa or salon, that's a reminder to the collective. I would think, spoil yourself, decompress, put your feet up, take some time, even if it means you have to pencil it into your calendar, because I think that's very important in context of pacing yourself when you're committing to a business, and the business, especially if you are, and we'll get to this question because you're a mother now, is that your business also becomes your other baby, and then the balancing of those particular conversations and the challenges that come with it, and also the structures and the rules you have to put into place so that there's a fair input into those particular choices that you've made personally and professionally. So you are a mother now. Congratulations again. And how are you managing? How are you coping? How are you pacing? Because I mean, you just came back from the States last week, and so how do you manage that challenge? Are you FaceTiming? Are you with your child while you're away? Did you take a child with you? Are you Zooming with them or on WhatsApp? How are you managing it?
Yeah. Okay. So it's an interesting journey, a journey to really sit down.
Without any guilt, I hope.
Guilt will always be there. Trust me. I didn't understand when people used to say that, but the guilt is always there. But I think, once again, it's all about starting with the end in mind and asking yourself, why am I doing this? Your why is actually what helps you throughout. But I think it goes back to that support structure that you've spoken about. I think really building a foundation of people who believe in you, who believe in what you're doing, who can then support you to be able to do that. So I think, it's been quite a blessing to have that support structure, to be able to continue with one of each while I still have my son. And it's not easy. Motherhood, I think, is really, it's really hard. It's really difficult, but it's not as hard as I thought it would be before I had my son. I think the way it's portrayed it can be quite scary to people who want to become mothers and entrepreneurs as well. I actually thought it would, I couldn't do it. I thought I would not be able to still do the things that I needed to do. But I'm really grateful for my mom, because, she's really supportive. And as a business partner, I think I would not choose any other business partner besides her, because she's a great mother as well as a business partner, but also supports me with taking care of my child, which I think, I can't be grateful enough for that.
In context of your child, and I know this is an odd question to ask, but sometimes people have this preconceived ideas about the child is going to become involved in the family business. Have you started seeing any of those ideas or thoughts, or is it going to be like, I mean, for example, you're saying in context of your heritage now, there's a culture that you've built, that you are in partnership with your mother in context of this business celebration. But now, what is the next step for your son?
Oh my word, Mike! He's only turning 1 this year.
Some people plan ahead, you see.
But it's something to think about. I think one of the things that is important is to support a child with what they want to take on. Not all of us got the opportunity to be supported on this journey in terms of what we chose. I started off studying law. My father wanted me to be a lawyer. He was very happy when I was working at the bank, but it took some time for him to believe that one of each is actually something that made sense, right? It took seeing newspaper articles, his friends telling him that, oh, I heard your daughter on the radio, for him to believe it. So I think I would have gotten further much sooner if I had gotten that support system of, fulfill your dreams and do what you see you are capable of. And I do understand that, my father was also an entrepreneur, so he didn't want me to face what entrepreneurs face, and I don't know as well if I want my child to go through all these challenges, but I think that what I do know for a fact is I would like him to be in a job that impacts other people's lives. That's all I can say. Whether that would be entrepreneurship, whether that would be whatever it would be, but I think it's important to have that kind of heart, to be able to want to take your profession to be able to be something that is impact based, depending on what life is going to be in those years to come.
Yeah, the thing is we all in community with each other on some level or another, and sometimes you're gonna sell the idea to your friends, your family, your community, and they may support it or they may not. It's a question of, and that's part of the I think the drive with entrepreneurship and then business is sometimes your vision is seeing opportunities that others don't. And so they may not be ready yet to see what you see until you realize it. And sometimes that journey means you walk alone for a bit, but by default, you will start to encounter people who are on similar paths. And that kind of keeps you strong. And I think that's what you have with the BCE community. So that's very important to keep nurturing that relationship ecosystems. So what I wanted to do also is I wanted to touch base a little bit on your journey with AGOA. You can just lightly say to everybody, what is AGOA, and then how much value you getting to know how effective this particular trade agreement is with the USA and Africa, and how much it can benefit not just African, but African women in the steps they're taking in their personal and professional journey.
Okay, so AGOA is the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which is a preferential trade agreement between the United States and African countries to be able to export certain goods that comply with certain origins, to export them duty-free into the United States. So I think for us, we tried a lot of markets. We exported to a lot of different countries, in the European countries and all that kind of thing. But what we saw is that we were getting quite a lot of interest within the USA. And also, then we decided to actually focus on the USA because of the fact that the US is quite a big country with a lot of different states versus focusing, on just a lot of different countries. So with AGOA, when your client receives the products, they don't actually pay duty, and then you become a preferential supplier. So yes. I think that's it in a nutshell. For one to understand what is it. There are incredible resources out there to be able to actually punch in your harmonized systems code of your product, which is every product has got export code where you can actually go in there and look at your product and whether your product actually qualifies under AGOA. And it's very simple because when you register as an exporter in South Africa, there are different preferential trade agreements on the customs form, and you would just select the ones that you would like to be applicable to exporting. And AGOA forms part of one of those trade agreements. We've had AGOA available for quite a long time, but it, depending on what happens, it's still available until 2025. So I think it's really important, especially, for women that are in the business of, whether it's textiles, whether it's, beauty products, to actually go through and see whether your products actually qualify, and then do your export marketing plan focused on the United States, and do your research, in terms of which states has a demand for those products and that kind of thing.
I'm going to ask a question based upon my ignorance now. Have you encountered any exporters who are kind of playing around in the renewable energy field? Or is it that you're just more focused on the creatives in context of fashion design, etc.?
So you mean from an AGOA perspective, if people in renewable, so I think for us, we've just focused on the creative community. I've not met anyone in that space yet who is exporting under AGOA, but I can always forward the link for you to maybe have, post it in this conversation, in this chat, and it has all the AGOA resources. It's got an AGOA toolkit, which tells you which products, what the origin should be, and what qualifies. I mean, I had a very interesting question the other day as well about services such as entertainment. So if you produce a song or a movie or that kind of thing, is that is that also part of is that considered under AGOA services? So I think it's worth having a look at that toolkit, because it's very, very specific as well. But I know that there's a big drive towards apparel products, wines as well, and that kind of thing, agricultural products, agriculture as well as textiles, apparel. Because when we went on Awep as well, it was which is the African Women Entrepreneurs Program under IVLP, it was very focused on exporting under AGOA, but our two streams were agriculture and textiles.
So it's important for people who are listening in, your business has to be registered, it has to be compliant, and then you would do your homework, looking into the AGOA best kind of option, depending on the product that you're producing.
Correct.
So I know at the interview, I said the conversation was to be about 20 minutes. So we're kind of heading towards wrapping up the conversation. So what do you do to relax or decompress? Do you read? Do you listen to music? Do you walk? Do you meditate? Do you go to church? What's your cup of tea?
My cup of tea is a cup of tea. Well, I think surrounding myself with good company is what I do, a community of friends and some clients who've become friends, who are very motivating, who really keep the fire burning for you. I think for me, that's what I really enjoy doing, who remain positive, who believe, because ultimately the conversation always goes back to work, right? So I think what I really do enjoy doing when I'm not working is spending time with those people who are very uplifting, who are motivating, because it can be a lonely journey. It's sometimes difficult for people to understand what you're doing. So it's important to stay in the company of positive people who who believe in what you're doing.
Definitely, for sure, because the people that around you, there's always an exchange of energies and an exchange of ideas, and an exchange of can be emotional or spiritual support, which I think is very important in context of keeping your eye on your goals and your achievements and your vision and purpose. So closing off the conversation is, do you have a message of inspiration for our viewers, for our people who are watching this particular content in this Global Entrepreneurship Month?
So first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You can say, have a cup of tea.
to just, share and just, have a conversation with you. I think what I would say is that we must always remember to build relationships. We are entrepreneurs, and once again, you cannot do it on your own, but sure. It's very important to build a good reputation, because first of all, the world is small. Like, the world is a very small place. So people really need to know what you do, what you're about, and have respect for your work. So the advice that I give entrepreneurs is to always stay grounded within the challenges as well as the successes, and always know that you should not burn your bridges, because you'll go that side and then the door closes. You need to cultivate and create and add to this ecosystem that you've spoken about. And also something that you mentioned about, like, your business is your baby. I think we need to let go of that mindset, because if we continuously have that mindset that my business is my baby, it means you're never going to let it go. You're never going to let other people bring in new ideas and drive certain things. So be open. Be open. I think being open is really important in entrepreneurship. People want to talk to you and meet for a coffee. We understand that time is very valuable, but I've had endless, meaningless coffees that I've had with people, but in the end, maybe after 2 or 3 years, they've translated into something. So be open, and also your role as an entrepreneur is to develop relationships.
And also be patient.
Yes.
It's very important. So, Tamburai, thanks for your time, and thanks everybody for spending time with us.